Yesterday, Donald Trump held one of his coronavirus press briefings, and sort of the big headline of the day was that Trump effectively declared mission accomplished over this entire thing. The particular quote that I loved, and they did briefly, they had tweeted it out, and then eventually took the tweet down, had a video of him saying, "We have met the moment, and we have prevailed." Jordan, have we met the moment, and or have we prevailed?
John, I would say no. I would say it's a bit premature. When we're months, if not years, away from a vaccine completely eradicating this virus, and it's hard to resist the comparisons to Bush's mission accomplished moment. They rushed out. It was way premature. They wanted to claim victory, get the positive PR because there's a couple different factors here at play. I mean, people are starting to suffer. People are falling behind on bills and rent. My cat is crawling up my back right now, and
we're suffering in a variety of ways.
Yeah, right. And Trump's in an election year, so he has a ton of incentives to try to expedite the eradication of this virus and get things back to normal, reopen businesses, continue to boost the economy, things like that. So it was tempting, and they took the bait to go out there and say, "Yeah, we did it. We met the moment." When in reality, we're still months, if not years, away from this thing ending.
Exactly. I agree. The comparisons are fairly obvious. It seems insane to declare victory knowing that 1,000 people will die the day you claim victory, and God only knows how many will die in the following days. But he does have one thing going for him, and that is that the people that like him will do and say and believe whatever he wants them to. And they fully agree. Yeah, no, we've prevailed. I don't care how many people have died. I don't believe how many people have died. Trump's right. We're done with this. It's all just fear-mongering. Let's move on. That's what it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, they seem more determined to blame this on China, and shift the focus onto another country and their handling of it, or the blame for the origin or things like that, than talking about the need for ventilators, the need for tests, things like that, the need for social distancing. So it's a completely warped response to a global crisis. And yeah, again, it was just super premature to do this.
It's funny that you mention shifting the blame to another country, because we're going to turn now to how the press briefing ended. And it ended abruptly, as you'll see. Take a look at the last minute. Take a look at what sent Donald Trump fleeing from the podium.
That the U.S. is doing far better than any other country when it comes to testing.
Yes.
Why does that matter? Why is this a global competition to you if every day Americans are still losing their lives and we're still seeing more cases every day?
Well, they're losing their lives everywhere in the world. And maybe that's a question you should ask China. Don't ask me, ask China that question, okay? When you ask them that question, you may get a very unusual answer. Yes, behind you, please.
Sir, why are you saying that to me specifically?
I'm telling you. I'm not saying it specifically to anybody. I'm saying it to anybody that would ask a nasty question like that.
That's not a nasty question.
Please go ahead.
Why does it matter?
Okay, anybody else? Please, go ahead in the back, please.
I have two questions.
No, it's okay.
But you pointed to me. I have two questions, Mr. President.
Next, please.
But you called on me.
I did, and you didn't respond, and now I'm calling on
Sorry, I just
the young lady in the back, please.
I just wanted to let my colleague finish.
Okay.
But can I ask you
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the alpha male in his natural habitat. They're being mean to me. I don't want them to be mean to me anymore. I'm out of here. It wasn't supposed to end. He was just supposed to keep taking questions. But because those women didn't stop talking when he wanted them desperately to stop talking, he just left. He walked away.
Yeah, I mean, this is routine behavior for him. We've seen, I've talked about this with you on the show a few weeks ago. Yamiche Alexander from PBS. She'll just ask him a straightforward news question, and he'll just go off on a tirade and attack her. We see this time and time again with women and reporters of color, specifically women of color. He feels threatened or intimidated. And I think there's also there's internalized misogyny and internalized racism within him that he projects onto them in their questions. This is just a pretty embarrassing moment. If anyone was in that situation, let alone the president of the United States. And it, straightforward question. And the fact that he responded in such a way and then stormed off is just truly embarrassing.
Yeah, embarrassing in so many ways. A lot of men, and I would say that I think it's safe to say they're overrepresented amongst conservative men. I think it's one of the chief things that makes a man into a conservative man is that they have only a couple of different settings for their view of women. It's lusting after women, being terrified of them, likely because you think they're going to reject you, or being enraged at them. Those are the different settings you can be on, and that's basically it. The incel mentality doesn't require that you're not having sex. Donald Trump has a wife. Still very much has that mentality. That's how he sees women. And you see that on display, as you said, over and over. They ask nasty questions. What does that mean? I don't know, but I do know that it's a question that a woman has asked. That's what makes something nasty, is that she didn't back down. And when he says, why don't you ask China? We all know exactly why he said that, and why he said that in particular to her. It's now the duty of conservatives to pretend that they don't understand that. That's what they'll do. Denying racism is the main job of a conservative grifter these days, and probably always. But anyway, his turn to blaming China is also part of a narrative that we've seen. I will say that I was watching this Joe Biden ad recently, I think it was yesterday, about Trump's statements denying that coronavirus is going to be serious and things like that. And I didn't like the ad because the ad also is very much fear-mongering and trying to cast blame onto China. But the thing is, we know that for the first month or so, Trump was complimenting China on the way that they were working with us, what they were doing to fight the disease. It's very well documented in his public statements. But now he needs a scapegoat. And after watching like a month of, Tucker Carlson and Laura Ingraham talking about Wuhan flu and stuff like that, he apparently decided, yeah, no, they've primed the audience to hate Asian people. So I'm just going to go with that. I'm going to say it's China's fault. Forget everything else that I said. My base certainly will. It's all on them. The question is going to be, is that going to work? Are enough of the American people going to think it doesn't matter that Trump didn't take this seriously and didn't do what's necessary to stop people from dying? Something China.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's so many ways to kind of frame this. I think one thing to remember is that, we had 17 White House staffers embedded in the WHO at the very onset of this thing. And they were getting reports as it started to emerge in China, and were reporting back to the White House in real time with information about this, warning Trump administration officials about this. So to act like this was, China's doing, and then China kept everyone in the dark is completely ahistorical. We know this to be fact because, that's, they were staffed and it's been reported out. So there's a few different, you could call it xenophobic, you can call it racist, but underlying all of that is a lack of preparedness and a sheer inability to govern. And what the Trump administration is doing is just trying to shift the blame to, distract people from their own ineptitude. Again, like we talked about earlier, it's an election year for Trump. This is going to be, there's no way around. This is going to be a bad circumstance. It's going to hurt anybody, Democrat or Republican. But Trump is so obsessed with retaining power and maintaining control that this is one thing. They're willing to go like a step too far in a way that other politicians might not, to shift the blame and deflect from their own failures.
And I do believe that Trump has seen some of the criticism. I'm assuming he went straight from the podium to a TV to watch how people were covering his hasty retreat. And he had this to say to people saying that this seems to be an indication of his continued racism and xenophobia towards Asian Americans. He tweeted, "Asian Americans are very angry at what China has done to our capital country and the capital world. Chinese Americans are the most angry of all. I don't blame them." I'm assuming he polled Asian Americans to see how mad they are at China or whatever. No, it would be, how amazing would it be to live your life where you're like, okay, this thing makes me mad. This thing's going poorly for me. I'm just going to make up whatever I want as a response and tweet it as if it was true, and know that when I make that up, when I provide no evidence for it, 20 to 50,000 people retweet it. they don't care if I had a reason. They, in fact, like that I make things up. Think about the collective effect that those sorts of interactions over the course of years would have on a human brain, especially one as so severely stunted as Donald Trump. That he is a bad person, he has bad instincts, but his base has made him worse by feeding his worst impulses.
Right. I mean, yeah, this is a guy who it furthered his career with a show where he, fired people famously for, the slightest transgressions or failures or not agreeing with them, things like that. And this is someone who's surrounded himself in his business with people of the same mentality. It's like, they're complete and total lackeys. They're supportive, whatever, just a ton of yes men. And that's what he's filled the White House with. And that's what the media, the right-wing media and right-wing political operatives have positioned themselves. They've positioned themselves similarly. So you have all of these things feeding into that just warped, corrupt mentality. And there's now a feedback loop where he's getting these bursts of dopamine for every unhinged thing he tweets out. And that's leading to things like this, which in reality, we're seeing a spike in anti-Asian American racism and acts of racism or harassment in our country because of that kind of stigma that him and other Republican officials are trying to place on China and Chinese Americans. So it's really dangerous underlying all of this stuff because it's leading to real world consequences.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.